future. Unbelievable. I gotta check this out, Doc.
All in the time, Marty. We're on a tight schedule here.
Tell me about my future. I mean, I know I make it big, but what do I become, like a rich rock star?
Please,
Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd are time-traveling once again in Back to the Future Part 2. That's one of 5 new movies we'll be reviewing this week on Siskel Ebert. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. Our first movie is Back to the Future Part 2, and this is one of the goofiest movies I've seen in a long time. A convoluted comedy about 2 time travelers who mess up the future and go back to the past to try to patch things up and make them come out right. The movie once again stars Michael J. Fox as the bewildered hero and Christopher Lloyd as Doc Brown, who has invented a time travel machine and now brings Fox to the year 2015 for a quick fix on the life of his son.
God, he looks just like me. Within 2 hours of his arrest, Martin McFly Jr. was tried, convicted, and sentenced to 15 years in the state penitentiary? Within 2 hours?
the justice system works swiftly in the future now that they've abolished all lawyers.
The movie has fun with its vision of the future, including three-dimensional holographic movie ads.
Shark still looks fake.
Fox causes lots of trouble when he gets a sports almanac and realizes he could travel back in time and win lots of money on sports bets.
Marty!
I can't lose.
Marty, up here!
Tragedy strikes when Fox's archenemy steals the sports magazine, goes back in time, becomes a millionaire, and in the new future marries Fox's mother.
Mom? Mom, that can't be you.
Oh, yes, it's me, Marty. Are you all right?
I'm fine. It's just that you're so big.
And so Fox and the Mad Professor have to go back in time once again to try to steal the almanac before the bad guy can start using it so the present will return to the way it ought to be. And if you're confused, so am I, and that's one of the charms of this movie, as the characters shuttle back and forth trying to do a patch-up job on the tides of destiny. Back to the Future Part 2 is not as good as the original 1985 film. It doesn't have the genuine human emotion of the earlier film when Fox tries to fix up a date between his own parents so that he'll be bored, but it is a goofy and screwball movie, and I enjoyed it for what it is rather than in comparison with the earlier film.
Well, I had the same reaction to the comparison of the two. The first film had a heart to it, and I don't think there's any reason why a screwball comedy couldn't take time out to have heart. In other words, I think this film would have been helped a great deal if it had a little heart to it. I think it would have been true to the original picture. Instead, I found this to be very gadget-filled and really noisy in an unpleasant way, so that when I was watching it, I was seeing a lot of slapstick, a lot of racing around, and the character of Biff, the enemy of Michael J. Fox, is really the star of the second picture. I think the movie could have been called Biff in a way, because it's really, he dominates the whole action. And the Michael J. Fox character and his relationship with his parents, that's really just not there. The father isn't even there. And so I really found it kind of unpleasant to watch in a way. And I was looking forward to it, but I didn't enjoy it at all.
I think maybe it will suffer because people remember that the first movie really did move them emotionally. This is an entirely different movie.
And not as good.
Entirely, and not as good, but still okay.
Not for me.
Oh, yes, I'd recommend it. I'd recommend it for exactly what it is. And one of the things I liked was Christopher Lloyd racing around back and forth through time. He changes something here, it comes out different there, he moves back here. Michael J. Fox steals the almanac in the future. Biff gets it from Michael J. Fox. Goes back to 1955. That changed 1985.
Yeah,
They're racing around, and that's really the charm of the movie, is just in its zaniness.
Except that when I started to talk about the noise factor of the film and the physical action, hard action, you seem to be nodding in agreement that that's sort of unpleasant.
No, well, of course, it's a noisy, action-filled film. What's wrong with that?
Well, when the noise doesn't mean anything to you,
No,
then it
that's
doesn't.
something to me.
Not to me.
It wasn't that noisy.
Okay, our next film is an animated feature for kids called All Dogs Go to Heaven, and it's surprisingly weak. Surprising because it was created by Don Bluth, the maker of such fine animated pictures as The Land Before Time and An American Tale. The biggest problem with All Dogs Go to Heaven is its confusing story, a 30s gangster parable set in New Orleans with a small-time hoodlum dog named Charlie being killed by a mob boss dog named Carface.
Do not wish that I should share 50% of the business with my partner, Charlie.
After Charlie is killed, he goes to heaven where he fiddles with a watch that controls his destiny, sending him back to Earth alive. Back on Earth, Charlie has a lot of adventures, including befriending an orphan girl who can predict the winners of horse races.
If you're serious about this mommy and daddy business, you're going to need a little dough of your own. You know, new dresses, new shoes. I know about these things. Nobody wants a scrawny little doll in rags.
That's Burt Reynolds' voice as Charlie. The story really wanders all over the place, with Charlie dealing with everything from a house full of orphans in the style of Oliver Twist to a big green sea monster that does an Esther Williams water ballet to that little girl who comes straight out of Little Miss Marker. In addition to being confused, I found All Dogs Go to Heaven to be needlessly violent, that the dogs really lacked any kind of fresh personalities, and the drawing of the film wasn't anything special either. So thumbs down for me.
Well, this movie suffers from the fact that it comes out at the same time as The Little Mermaid, which is really an animated classic. And this is not an animated classic, but I did enjoy it, and I think you were a little bit too hard on it. I think that the plot was not that hard to follow, really. I mean, after all, this is for 6-year-olds, and I think they could probably follow
I don't know
it.
that they can.
And I did enjoy the drawing. I think Don Bluth has tried to liberate himself from the Disney cookie cutter factory that he left. Bluth is an animator who left Disney in 1979 to set out on his own. And with these dogs and with the other characters in the movie, including it's an alligator, not a sea monster, and I could see that it was an alligator anyway, I think he gives them a lot of personality by allowing them to stretch. They become kind of rubbery and kind of flexible, and I enjoyed that kind of animation.
I don't know that this story was worth doing. Do you think the story was worth telling?
Frequently with animated films, I have a feeling that the story is the last thing they're concerned about. I think they're concerned more with visual sequences and how things can be developed on that basis.
But what makes
the overall plot is usually the weakest part of many animated films.
Okay, but what makes the classic ones classic is that they do have timeless stories, and this certainly
You
doesn't.
do care about them. You don't care as much about this. That's right. When we come back, a 28-year-old British actor who is being called the new Olivier has had the nerve to make his own movie version of one of Olivier's most famous films, Henry V.
Where is my gracious...
And surprisingly emotional film version of Shakespeare's Henry V, the play in which young Prince Hal abandons his boozing and winching with that bad influence Sir John Falstaff and grows into greatness as he leads his nation into battle with France. The movie was adapted and directed by the 28-year-old actor who stars in it, and here he is, Kenneth Branagh, delivering an ultimatum, although his troops are completely outnumbered.
For as I am a soldier, if I begin the battery once again, I will not leave the half-achieved half-fleur, till in her ashes she lie buried.
This speech by Henry at the dawn of the battle is one of the most famous in Shakespeare and an acid test for anyone who would hope to follow in Olivier's footsteps.
For he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother. Be he ne'er so vile, this day shall gentle his condition.
And gentlemen in England now abed shall think themselves accursed they were not here, and hold their manhood's chief, while then he speaks that fought with us upon St. Crispin's Day.
That is Greatness by Kenneth Branagh, and here is the dramatic moment when Henry, bloodied and wearied in battle, finds out if England won or lost.
I'll give us leave, great king, to view the field in safety and dispose of their dead bodies.
I tell you truly, Harold, I know not if the day be ours or no.
The day is yours.
This is a very physical Henry V, filled with mud and sweat and tears, but also with great spirit. At first, I thought Kenneth Branagh looked almost too young to play the king, but then I remembered that Henry was a young and impetuous king, and that he had to be to lead troops that were so severely outnumbered. I found the opening scenes of Branagh's film a little slow going, but then so is Shakespeare, who takes a great deal of time to set the scene. But by the long night before battle, when Henry wanders incognito among his soldiers, the film develops power and tension. It's an impressive debut. But just for fun, let's compare a key moment for any actor, the entrance. This is Branagh's first entrance in the movie, stark and dramatic. And this is how Sir Laurence Olivier first entered in his 1945 version of the play. Olivier is a at pains there to show us he's only human, only an actor who has a cough, but he still has to go on. Brannick is more dramatic. His entrance was criticized by some of his colleagues as being immodest, but is Olivier, by craftily acting like a tired old trooper, actually drawing even more attention to himself.
Well, of course, Olivier had a whole different purpose in setting up his film that way. He was trying to show the making of the play. I mean, you see the outside of the Globe Theater where the play is taking place, so his movie was about the making of the play, whereas this film is more just getting into the straight play. So there's a whole different approach there, and that's why the two approaches. But I want to say that I thought this was absolutely riveting from beginning to end. I didn't find it slow. I found that the emotional quality of Henry in watching this guy and watching him up close and having Brannick be interesting in a tight shot was very exciting for me. I saw a real leader. I saw somebody growing into the role and getting turned on by battle, and still questioning at the same time. This is a really exciting character, bringing history alive, seeming extremely modern. I think it's one of the great Shakespeare films, unquestionably.
Well, you know, I had heard a lot about Brannick, who starred in a big revival in London of Look Back in Anger, and he's been promoted, not really by himself, but by other people as the new Olivier. So I was really looking forward to this film because I thought he really had his work cut out for him, and he delivers. It's a very convincing film. It justifies the fact that he wanted to make this film again that has been made before, not only by Olivier, but also by Orson Welles, whose movie Falstaff also has a real muddy battle scene, just like this one. Well, it's a good film.
But I mean, I was excited when he wasn't even in battle, and he was talking right from the very first scene, when he's talking to his troops and colleagues.
Well, the St. Crispin's Day speech,
which
is the key speech, and really the speech that Olivier wanted to emphasize when he made the film, because it was in the middle of the Second World War and he was building morale. Brannick really delivers on that.
Yeah. Coming up next, one of Santa's reindeer needs a temporary home and finds it in Prancer.
It's different.
Oh, that's just the new label. Don't you recognize all the delicious chicken and carrots and noodles? They just changed the home cooking on the outside, not the home cooking on the inside.
Home cooking soups from Campbell's.
Our next film is a sweet, effective Christmas story called Prancer, shot on location in southwest Michigan. It tells the story of a little girl named Jessica who lives on a poor farm but becomes a celebrity in town after she discovers a wounded reindeer near her home, a reindeer she believes is Santa's reindeer called Prancer.
I'm sorry, I don't have any time for chit-chat. I know you're not the real Santa.
Whoa, of course I am.
But can you get this letter to him?
Why don't you just put a stamp on it and drop it in the mailbox?
It's too late for that. Please believe me, this is a matter of utmost importance. Prancer's in the shed near my house.
After Jessica's opinion of the reindeer becomes well known in town, the reindeer is locked up in a Christmas tree lot as a promotional stunt. Jessica believes this really is Prancer, and she wants to set him free.
Prancer, come on!
Before Jessica gets her wish to liberate Prancer, she has a reconciliation with her gruff father, played by Sam Elliott.
You were gone last night. I saw what it'd be like around here not to have you around. I love you, Jesse.
What keeps this little fable from being so preposterous are two things. First, the authentic small-town look. And second, and much more important, the lead performance of Rebecca Harrell as little Jessica. She isn't a dazzling, cute Hollywood kid, and that's just perfect. Rather, her heart is dazzling. This is Rebecca Harrell's first film, and she plays it very, very well. Smart and earnest and convincing. We believe that lots of towns in this holiday season have lots of little girls like Jessica, and for that reason, that little girl's performance, I really liked Prancer.
I liked it too, and I liked Rebecca Harrell too. And what I also liked was that they didn't make this movie into kind of a Norman Rockwell Christmas where everybody is ideal and everybody's happy and there's pies in the oven and toys under the tree.
It's tough in the town.
Yes, this apple farm that her father owns and operates is just about to go broke. There isn't much money. Her mother is dead. The Christmas may not be too cheerful for her, and yet she doesn't sit around and complain. She gets out there and she's got gumption. She finds this reindeer. She hides it in a shed behind the house. She gets a part-time job to buy oats for it. She knows it's Prancer, and by the end of the movie, we practically believe it's Prancer too, because the reality level of the movie is there. It's not just a fable.
Well, that's where you have to credit the director, John Hancock, for shooting it in a nice location and also shooting it kind of dark and not in upbeat. When I think of the picture, you know, I think of her wandering out in the woods in the backwoods. I mean, that's the dominant image, and not the Christmas Carol sweet kind of holiday picture. And it's very, very good on that basis.
Christmas always seems to me like a real dark season. You know, it's cold and dark despite all of the images in the movies, and this one gets that. Coming up next, one of the year's most unusual films, Sidewalk Stories, about a New York pavement artist who unexpectedly adopts a little girl. Original films of the year called Sidewalk Stories that tells the story of a New York sidewalk artist in a way that can only be called Chaplinesque. And like Charlie Chaplin's early work, this is a silent film photographed in black and white. But it's not an old film, it's right up to date, a brand new film by a director named Charles Lane, who also stars in the movie as an artist who tries to make his living by sketching portraits. One day, the artist amazingly finds himself in possession of a little girl whose mother has lost her in a street scuffle. The artist doesn't know much about taking care of kids, but this is a kid who can teach him. Here's one of the movie's funniest scenes. The little girl reveals a natural artistic talent. Sidewalk Stories is an amazingly good film, and one of the best things about it is the way Charles Lane is able to keep inventing new situations and sight gags to keep the story fresh. I've seen the movie 2 times, and both times there was a hush in the audience because this silent film was absorbing their attention so much more deeply than some sound films do. Of course, the movie isn't really silent. It has a musical score by Mark Martyr and some sound effects and even a few lines of dialogue at the end, which I thought were not necessary. But basically, Sidewalk Stories is a grand, entertaining return to a great movie tradition. I loved it.
I didn't care for it that much, and I was disappointed because I certainly enjoy the enterprise. I mean, I like the idea that someone would take a risk and make a silent film and a black and white film. But my problem is when I see silent and black and white films, and particularly Chaplin films that this recalls, I think of timeless films. And people who are emblematic of situations. And in this picture, when I was watching it, and possibly because I knew some of the locations that he was shooting in, or felt that I knew him in New York, I thought it was very time-bounded. So I was always jumping back and forth between the very real places and the very real situations of the homeless people that he's shooting, and this artifice of black and white and no sound.
But probably 99% of all the silent films ever made were time-bound. I mean, you know, every film until 1927 or 1928 was silent, and so a lot of movies took place in the contemporary world of that time, and looked just like the people who were alive then, doing the things they did then, just as this movie does. So the silence really is an artistic choice, and you shouldn't say, well, if it's not universal and not time-bound, then it doesn't work for me. Well, just as a sound film can also take place at a real time and place. So what?
I'm just telling you that when I saw the picture, that's what I thought about when I was watching it. I was saying, well, I know he's making a silent movie. While I'm watching this, I know he's making a silent movie. I know he's making a black and white movie. I know he's making all of this. And I'm saying it's a very real situation. And I would have actually preferred, this is, with the story that he particularly told, I would have preferred sound.
No. With sound, you would have had a docudrama. It would have been just another docudrama about people who live on the streets and people who get into... There's a lot of fable in this. For example, in the real world, he couldn't really get that child, you know. There would have been an outcry and so forth. So it's a fable, and it needs the quality of silent film to make it into a fable, into a wonderful fable.
Well, I didn't think it was so wonderful. Now let's recap the movies we reviewed on this show. A split vote on Back to the Future Part 2. Roger enjoyed its many flip-flops between the past and the future. He votes thumbs up. I found it to be a noisy, gadget-filled exercise, lacking the heart of the original. My thumb is down. Another split vote on the animated feature, All Dogs Go to Heaven. Roger enjoyed it up to a point, he says. I found the story confused and the celebrity voices really annoying. 2 thumbs up, however, for Kenneth Branagh's rendering of Henry V, an exciting, fresh portrait of the king. And 2 more thumbs up for John Hancock's Prancer, the holiday fable featuring a beguiling film debut by Rebecca Harrell. And a split vote on Sidewalk Stories. Roger thinks the silent film is a wonderful fable. I found the silent treatment of the contemporary world to be artificial. And so the two we really agree on that are both very, very good are Prancer and Henry V.
And I would put in Sidewalk Stories too, Gene, because all movies require the suspension of disbelief. You know it's only a movie, so how come you didn't know this one was only a movie?
Oh, because I found, I mean, I'm just repeating myself, but when I saw this really gutsy move to go black and white and go without sound, it made me question whether it was working or not.
That's it for this week. Next week, we'll be back to review National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, starring Chevy Chase in an ill-fated holiday.
If I woke up tomorrow with my head sewn to the carpet, I wouldn't be more surprised than I am right now.
And Roger and Me, the wicked documentary that declares war on General Motors. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.